It was just another Tuesday morning when Detective Darren Hayes and Officer Samuel Williams sat in their squad car reviewing the case files they had on their desk. Both seasoned cops, Hayes and Williams had seen their fair share of crime, but there was something about this particular case that made their blood run cold. A string of drug busts in the quiet suburban neighborhood had caught the attention of the local police department. The dealers were elusive, and the evidence kept pointing to one particular figure in the background, someone who, despite their best efforts, had never been caught in the act. They referred to her as the ghost, a shadow who seemed to slip away just as easily as she appeared. The suspicion was that she was a high-ranking member of a narcotics network, but the trail was always cold. Little did they know, they were about to cross paths with someone who had been undercover for much longer than they could have imagined, a woman who had been playing the same game, only from a far more dangerous angle. Her name was Maya Harper. To the world, she was just another woman of color trying to make it in a society that often overlooked people like her. But in the world of federal law enforcement, she was someone else entirely, a DEA agent who had infiltrated one of the most dangerous drug rings in the country. Her mission had been painstaking, and she had earned the trust of some of the highest players in the game. But now, Maya's carefully crafted identity was about to become entangled with a web of deception and corruption that no one had anticipated. Maya had grown used to operating in the shadows, her life a carefully constructed lie built on every clue, every lead, every name she had cultivated over the past few years. Every step she took was calculated, each action choreographed to protect the ultimate goal, bringing down the entire operation from the inside. She never expected that her path would cross with that of Darren Hayes and Samuel Williams, two men who would prove to be far more dangerous than she ever imagined. It started with a simple arrest. A low-level dealer named Troy Mitchell had been apprehended in a routine traffic stop. But when he mentioned Maya's name during his interrogation, it sparked something in Hayes and Williams. They had heard the name before, but they never connected the dots. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Mitchell wasn't just a random dealer. He was tied to a larger operation, one that had connections all the way to the top. And somehow, this woman, Maya Harper, was at the heart of it. The more they dug, the more the pieces seemed to fit. They had no idea that Maya was an undercover agent working tirelessly to bring the operation down from within. But what they did know was that they had a chance to catch a big fish, a high-ranking dealer who had eluded the law for far too long. The decision was made. Maya Harper would be their target, and they would take her down no matter the cost. Maya had always been aware of the risks of her work. Being undercover meant constantly living on the edge, but she had always trusted her instincts. What she hadn't counted on was the betrayal that would come from within the very institution that was supposed to protect her. The local police department, driven by their own motives, would unknowingly set her up in a way that would leave her fighting for her life. The day of her arrest arrived with the quiet hum of an ordinary morning. Maya had just returned from a meeting with one of her informants when she was confronted by Officer Williams, who had been waiting outside her apartment. He approached her with an air of confidence, but there was something in his eyes, a glint that made her pause. Before she could react, he slammed her against the wall, cuffing her wrists tightly. "You're under arrest," he said, his voice cold, "for conspiracy to distribute narcotics." Maya's heart raced, but she kept her composure. Her mind was already working through the possibilities. How could this be happening? She had been careful, had followed the rules, had kept her cover intact. But something had gone horribly wrong. As she was dragged into the back of the squad car, the weight of the situation began to sink in. She had been set up, and worse, the cops had no idea who they were dealing with. The courthouse was buzzing with activity the day Maya stood trial. She had been charged with a litany of crimes, all fabricated by the very people who had orchestrated her fall from grace. Her lawyer, an experienced criminal defense attorney named Harold Finch, had been assigned to represent her. But even he couldn't understand the depths of the conspiracy. Finch knew that the charges were a farce, but he also knew that proving Maya's innocence would be no easy task. In the court of public opinion, she was already guilty. The press had been all over the case, painting Maya as a dangerous criminal, a drug kingpin who had been playing the system for years. As Maya sat in the defendant's chair, her mind raced. She had spent years building a life of lies, and now it seemed as if everything was crashing down around her. But what worried her most was the lack of awareness on the part of the officers who had arrested her. They had no idea that the woman they were accusing was one of their own, an agent working to take down the very people they were investigating. If they only knew who they were dealing with, would they still go through with it? Or would they have second thoughts? The trial dragged on for weeks, with the prosecution presenting a mountain of fabricated evidence: drugs that were supposedly found in her car, wiretaps that supposedly caught her discussing deals with known criminals. But Maya's defense team fought back with everything they had. They poked holes in the prosecution's case, exposing the lies and inconsistencies that had been carefully crafted to frame her. Still, the jury seemed unconvinced. The media coverage had been relentless, and public opinion was swayed against her.